Hey everybody, it's Jason from Code Monkeys and welcome to another Code Monkeys tutorial. In today's video we're going to give you a more up-close and personal look at electronic speed controllers, ESCs. So here we have two ESCs. We have a 40 amp ESC and we have a 30 amp ESC. So that's the current rating of these ESCs. And if you remember from the previous video, the current rating of your ESC should be at least 5 amps greater than the current that's going to be drawn by your motors. And you may also notice that the 40 amp ESC is a little bit larger than the 30 amp ESC, which means it's going to weigh more and it's going to be a little bit more expensive. And the cost of your components and the weight of your components are all very important factors to take into consideration when building your RC drone, because as the weight of your drone increases, it's going to deplete the charge of your battery faster, because the motors will have to spin faster to be able to generate enough thrust for your drone to take off and for it to remain in the air. So the weight of your components, the thrust your motors can generate, and the power your battery can supply are all very important factors to take into consideration when buying these components. And in a future video, we will discuss in more detail how to make the calculations to determine an optimum combination of components. So over here you'll notice that we have connectors. So this connector is what gets connected to the DC battery. And these both are XT60 connectors, so you may also see other connectors like an XT90, a Dean's connector, a JST, etc. So it's just important to realize that when you buy the DC battery, you're going to want the connectors to be the same, because if they're not, then you're going to need to purchase an adapter or to make your own adapter. And you also notice that we have two wires coming out of the ESC. We have a black wire, and that's the negative DC battery lead, and we have a red wire, and that's the positive DC battery lead. And if you remember from the previous video, one of the functions of the ESC is to take the DC voltage from the DC battery and then convert that DC voltage into an AC voltage, which is then going to be used to power our brushless DC motors. And if you notice over here, we have 3 wires coming out of our ESCs. So those wires are the wires that are going to get connected to your motor, and we can connect them in any order. And if we connect them and the motor is spinning clockwise and we want it to spin counterclockwise, all we have to do is switch any of those wires and vice versa. And you'll also notice that the ESCs have a receiver lead coming out of them. So this is the lead that's going to get connected to your receiver, and it allows the ESC to receive input signals from the receiver, and then the ESC is then able to process those signals using a microcontroller, which is found on the printed circuit board of the ESCs, and that's contained within this heat shrink here. And another important thing to note when purchasing ESCs is if they have a battery eliminator circuit, a BEC. So that's what's going to be used to drop the voltage down that's supplied by your battery into a safe range to operate your receiver, your servos, your flight controller, etc. Now both of these ESCs actually have BECs, but you may also see ESCs that don't have BECs. So just be sure to purchase ones that have BECs if you want to keep the build of your drone as simple as possible. And the BEC is also found on the printed circuit board of the ESC, which is once again contained in this heat shrink. So now I'm going to bring the ESC closer to the camera to give you a better view of what's written on it. So hopefully we can get the camera to focus. And let's see here. Okay, there we go. Now, once again, you'll see the 30 amps, so that's the current rating of the ESC, and below that you'll see that it says brushless motors, so that means this ESC is used to power brushless DC motors. And below that you'll see that it says 5 volts / 3 amps BEC, so that means that this ESC has a BEC, and that the BEC will drop the voltage down supplied by the battery to 5 volts. And below that you'll see that it says 2-4S, so that means that this ESC can be used for 2, 3, 4 cell DC batteries that have their cells connected in series. And right next to that you'll see the letters LiPo, so that means that this ESC can support a lithium polymer battery, and this ESC can actually support nickel metal hydride battery and a nickel cadmium battery as well. It's not explicitly written here, but it's in the user manual, and you may also see it in the product description when you're purchasing the ESC. And right next to that, you'll see that it says 16.8 volts max. So that's the maximum voltage that this ESC can support. So when you're buying the battery, just make sure that it doesn't produce a voltage that's greater than the maximum voltage that this ESC can support. Now, you'll also notice over here on the connector that it says XT60, so that'll tell you that this is an XT60 connector, and this is what the connector looks like. And on the other side, you see our 3 wires. These are the 3 leads that get connected to the motor, and these are bullet plugs. See them there. And then we have the receiver lead. So this is actually a 3-pin receiver lead. So that's all that we're going to discuss in this video. I hope you found it helpful. And if you did, be sure to comment, like, and subscribe. And in the next video, we are going to be discussing the basics of DC batteries. And thanks for watching, and we'll see you in the next video.